That is essentially what psychotherapy can help you do. It can help you to improve yourself at a time when you can still afford to make mistakes,
Right.
when you can still afford to go back a few steps,
Correct.
make some changes in your life. That is what psychotherapy can help you do best. That if a person has been able to be a successful athlete or a successful sports person, it is because their parents or a parent decided to not have a life for 15-20 years.
Yeah.
Children usually don't lose their interest in sports.
Oh.
Okay? So if they are thinking on a bore झालंय, there is something else.
Right.
That is the problem.
Okay. So you mean to say that essentially whatever we eat, so the food that we eat, it affects the way that our mood changes or what we feel or how we even perform on the field?
Yeah. So I'll give you a very simple example. For every child to be involved in some sort of a sport in their developing age,
Okay.
with the kind of nuclear setup that we have now, children are the center of the family.
Correct.
But a child who plays some kind of a sport knows that the team matters more than me. My performance matters more than me, etc. So they learn to be a part of something bigger. My major suggestion always to all younger people who are trying to become psychologists is learn from experience.
Right.
Do as many internships as possible, work with a lot of people in different fields. Then divide their days where on Mondays you expect them to study, on Thursdays you expect them to play. So on Thursdays don't ask them homework हुआ क्या, and on Mondays don't ask them कि training हुआ क्या. You cannot play at your 100% ever. Shouldn't even expect that.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kritva Unplugged, your space for everything related to sports. I am Tanushree Mahajan. I'm a sports storyteller, and this is the channel where you will understand about very interesting things if you want to build a career in sports. Our guest for today is psychotherapist Aditi Kulkarni. Having done her MSc in neuroscience from King's College London, Aditi has been working in this field for the last 8 years. She's the founder of Yuvana Wellness, has a team of 15 therapists working with her. Aditi has worked with athletes from sports like polo, tennis, rugby, and college football in UK. The most interesting thing about her is that she's currently working on her PhD in neuropsychology, which essentially studies how neurotransmitters act as the language of the brain, which impacts the way that we build relations, how we function in society, and how deeply we feel emotions. She not only provides therapy in sports, but also uses sports as a form of therapy. So let us jump right in. Welcome, Aditi, and thank you for being on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, so jumping to my first question. Now, when we speak about sports, the most natural thing for people to do is, focus on the physical abilities of any athlete.
Right.
So, as a psychologist, how necessary do you think it is to actively focus on the mental aspects and the emotional aspects?
So it is a simple understanding that you win a game or you lose a game first in your mind and then on the field.
True.
Right? So the right kind of mindset and the right place to be in your brain, in your mind, is how you make or break it as a successful athlete. Right? So making sure that your mental capabilities are completely harnessed and making sure that you are at the best of your game, not just physically but mentally as well,
Right.
is very very important.
Correct.
Because if you can be physically in the right form, you can be at the best of your physical health, but if your mind is not in the right place, if you're distracted, if you're thinking about some other stressors, some other pressures in life,
Right.
and then you're trying to ace at your game, that's not going to happen, because your mind is preoccupied to let you focus on achieving potential, right? So if you have to become a successful athlete, or you have to play any sport for that matter, being in the right kind of mindset is very, very essential,
important.
non-negotiable for that.
So, can you actually give us some examples? Ki where all is it that the athletes actually need to focus? So, one aspect is, of course, if they are not performing well.
Right.
But are there any other areas that people can notice? Okay, this is what is happening, or this is what is not happening, and that is a good time for me to actually go and seek therapy.
So performance, as you said, is one major trigger for people to seek help if they are not achieving their full potential.
Right.
That is one major area when they feel the need for seeking help. Another, I would rather say that mental health care in general needs to be used more as a curative, less as a curative form, more as a preventive
Right.
measure.
Right.
So instead of trying to get treatments, get help when there is a problem, why not use the tools available from psychotherapy to actually improve yourself while you already can?
Correct.
Right?
Right.
So instead of digging a well when there is a fire, why not dig a well when there isn't any fire, so that you can be well prepared?
Correct,
Right? So
correct.
if you want to achieve your full potential as an athlete, as a performer, it is essential that you sweat in peace, so that you bleed less in war.
Oh, nice.
And that is essentially what psychotherapy can help you do. It can help you to improve yourself at a time when you can still afford to make mistakes,
Right.
when you can still afford to go back a few steps,
Correct.
make some changes in your life. That is what psychotherapy can help you do best.
Right.
Of course, it can help you as a curative measure as well, but the true potential or the true benefit of psychotherapy lies in prevention more.
Correct, correct. So that is very interesting. Now, so what I also wanted to ask you is, as an athlete, once they start performing, so people start knowing them. Do you think in those spaces also they need to know how to handle themselves so that म्हणजे जे म्हणतात ना की ओ डोक्यात जायला लागलंय हवा डोक्यात जाते असं so to make sure that that doesn't happen or that doesn't impact the way that you play the game because it may not be pressure from your coach or your parents but expectations of people. Do you think that is also something that can actively hamper the thinking process of an athlete?
Yes, absolutely. It can hamper the thinking process of any individual, less an athlete. So the thing is, when you are practicing, when you are learning, when you're in that curve, nobody knows you, right? And then one fine day, your efforts take fruit, and you do something exceptionally well, and then people will start to know you. They will want to know your story, they will want to interact with you. All of that will start happening.
Correct.
Right? So, but when you were practicing, when you were training, you were training for the game.
Correct, exactly.
You weren't training to be known. You weren't training to be, a public figure, if you might want to call it that.
Correct.
So, and that is also something that you can't train for. But once that actually starts happening to you, तेव्हा हे जे आहे की आता खूप माजत आलाय किंवा people they lose the ability to have human interactions properly.
Correct.
Essentially because you don't know
Oh.
what you're supposed to be
Correct.
doing
Correct,
in such
correct.
situations, right?
Correct.
You don't know how you're supposed to conduct yourself. You don't know what kind of questions need what kind of answers, right? So then, of course, if there is somebody who is looking out for you in that space and helping you kind of maneuver through unknown territories,
Correct.
it just becomes easier for you.
Correct.
You don't have to think about everything
by yourself.
by
essentially.
yourself, right? You only think about your game. You only think about what you need to do best.
Correct.
I always tend to tell this to a lot of people, that whatever it is that you need to do, or whatever it is that you are the best at, you just think about that. The rest of it, I'll take care of.
That is actually interesting. And so now the world, we are all hyper connected because of digital media, or, we have information right in our hands. So there is so much of space for different perspectives to essentially build up. Like the athlete or the coach, they may not be even intending to behave in a particular manner, but it gets perceived as something very different.
Yeah.
So maybe I think, taking guidance from a counselor, even in those moments, just to be able to let go of whatever people say, because you can't keep giving answers all the time. So that
You can't give answers, you can't justify yourself every time. You are not uh, becoming a known public figure does not mean that you are in some kind of a cage or in a zoo where people can come and watch you perform.
Correct.
Right? Your public performance is on your field.
Correct.
And that is open for judgments, and that is open for discussions, obviously. But then your personal life isn't. There was a very interesting thing that I heard. A veteran actress was talking about it. Back in the 70s, back in the 60s, 70s, we were inaccessible. We were only accessible to people through our craft.
Correct.
And then maybe a little through the magazines and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the only accessibility that people had to film stars. So we stayed in that
Aura.
Or,
yeah,
we could afford to be ourselves in our public life and still have a private life.
Correct.
Whereas nowadays that option is gone from any public personality.
Correct.
Where now there is a growing trend of being real on social media and everything.
Correct.
So people are more interested in your personal life. People are more interested in understanding what kind of person you are, what kind of thoughts you have, what kind of beliefs you have. So that pleasure or that novelty of being a star or of being somebody inaccessible is gone. So
that is
you
the
need
situation
to
right
deal
now.
with it
Correct.
as best as you possibly can.
True. So interestingly, Ata, like you also mentioned, na, ki, once an athlete becomes famous, people start knowing them. तर नाव जेव्हा होतं तेव्हा प्रायमरीली त्या ॲथलीटचं होतं, or to some extent even the coach. But parents also put in a lot of efforts, and even at a younger age, I think they sacrifice a lot for their kids.
Yes.
So do you think even sports parents need counseling or need somebody or some space where they feel understood,
Right.
So does that happen?
So I very strongly believe in this, that if a person has been able to be a successful athlete or a successful sports person, it is because their parents or a parent decided to not have a life for 15-20 years and spend all their time ushering them from one coaching to the other, for one tournament to the other. So it is a lot of commitment that comes with having a sports kid. And obviously it takes a lot of effort on the parents' end as well. Now, if they are also from a similar profession, they might at least know the nooks and crannies of it. But if they are not from that background, and if they are trying to make a footing for their child, then it's even more difficult. So definitely it puts a lot of pressure on them, because they are not just raising a child, they are also raising a system around the child, while having their own commitments, while having their own work, all other adulting stuff. Right? So yes, it is very, very essential for the parents as well to have their own support system in place, somebody to bounce ideas off of, somebody who can validate, invalidate any issues that they might be going through. It is essentially a team like the athlete being at the center of it, the coach, the parents, the rest of the people, maybe a physiotherapist, maybe a nutritionist, everybody,
Right.
a psychologist, all of these people are a team, and that
Correct.
whole team needs each other.
Correct. True.
It is not only for the athlete.
Correct.
They all need to function well with each other.
Correct.
So a coach needs to function well with the parents, a nutritionist needs to work well with the parents, and vice versa.
Correct.
Only then can they provide that homogeneous system or that homogeneous growth environment
Correct.
for that athlete.
Correct.
So it is
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
interlinked.
And so this is very interesting. Like it is said, ki apart from, so you can only fill another person's cup if your cup is full.
Right.
So, like I remember when I used to skate or I used to compete, my mother was everything. So anything that she told me, okay, you need to eat this food, you need to rest now, or the smallest of things she literally had taken care of, and I didn't even have to think. And now when we are having this conversation, that's
Right.
what, I realized that the name actually, so people knew me, but they did not know about all of these small efforts that she has put in. So
Right.
somewhere I think even the athletes can go back and just notice these things and maybe just
Acknowledge.
express that
Right.
to the parents.
Yeah. So now I am raising a young kid who is very sport inclined.
Wonderful.
Right. And me being a psychologist, I know how important it is for his development age or in his developmental phases to have that sporting acumen.
Correct.
Right. As we were talking about the first thing, sports is not just a physical thing.
Right.
Right. You first have to have the acumen to become a sports person, and
True.
then you can actually execute that. So I see that acumen in him, and like we're trying to giving him an environment where he can nourish that
Correct.
acumen. Does not mean that he will become ऐसा कोई plan तो ऐसा ये वाला plan तो नहीं है that he has to become an Olympian or whatever that is.
Yeah.
But he has the acumen to be a sports person, so that environment needs to be there, and parents primarily contribute to creating that environment
Correct.
for a sports person to be there. Right?
So from this, I actually have a question. How is it that the parents can actually have that right kind of balance? Because as a parent, you might notice that your child has a sporting acumen, but they may not be enjoying it because we hear a lot of kids, कि आज पेंटिंगचा क्लास लागेला उद्या डान्सला गेलाय परवा स्पोर्ट्सला गेलाय. So yes, allowing them to explore all of these things, agreed. But they are kind of following sports for 2 years and then they're like, नाही आता बोर झालंय, आता मला हे नाही करायचंय. But with a parent, like they can understand that if the kid kind of still sticks to it, they can actually excel.
Right.
And like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to be at a very great level,
Right.
but just competitive sports. So how is it that the parents can actually find that right balance between not really pushing the kids, so the kids shouldn't feel like it is the parents' agenda, but building that environment or making it interesting for the kids to want to follow sports on their own?
Right. So there is one more aspect to this that usually gets unnoticed. Children usually don't lose their interest in sports.
Oh.
Okay. So if they are saying कि मला बोर झालंय, there is something else.
Right.
That is the problem.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe the culture or maybe the environment in which they are going for playing or whatever, those could be the hindering factors.
Right.
Because usually in formative years, children do not lose interest towards sport.
Oh.
Okay, like if it is a kid who has been interested primarily, will not lose.
Right.
Somebody like me, so I am a dyslexic, so I've never enjoyed being
Sports,
on the field because that was like my worst nightmare, balls and things coming and hitting my face where I cannot calculate how to hold them. Worst nightmare. Never been interested, never having the interest.
Yeah.
That's different.
Right.
So if my parent would have pushed me at that point of time to go and play some competitive sport, of course I would have been ticked off. But if we are talking about a child who has been interested all their while, let's say, just like you said,
Correct.
2 years something they have actively played
Yeah.
whatever, and now they are suddenly saying that I'm not interested anymore, and or I'm bored, I don't want to go for coaching, etc. It could be something else.
Right.
It could be some other trigger. So that is where you might want to sit and talk to your child.
Yeah.
Why is it that they're suddenly bored? Is there something else they want to explore? Even in sports also, is there something else that they want to kind of look into? Did somebody introduce them to something else that they found more interesting, etc.? So it could be
Correct.
a different
In that manner.
set of problems.
Right, right. So, so of course, there is like a growing awareness about the need and the importance of psychology or mental conditioning in sports overall.
Yeah.
So, you have worked with a polo club in Pune, right?
Yeah.
Could you share some of your experiences from there?
So we were primarily working with them in their in-session, like in-season performance this thing. So what we used to work with them for were two things actually. We were working on the individual sessions for all the players.
Okay.
We used to do group sessions with them once a week to kind of have a more team building exercise, have a safer space where people can talk about issues if they are facing, so that nobody feels isolated in in the whole setup. And we were also working with them for their nutritive care.
Okay.
So because what affects the body affects the mind. That's simply how it goes. So what you eat before your team meetings, also what you eat before your matches, what you eat after your matches, how do you build yourself up to that performance level, can be very nuanced.
Right.
And can be very calculated.
Okay.
All right. So for that, just me being a psychologist and saying that I want to put you in the right mindset is going to have a 50% impact if
right.
you are not eating right.
Oh.
Right. So then we used to also ensure that their diet and things are aligned with the goals that are expected.
Okay.
So used to work on that.
This is very interesting. So you mean to say that essentially whatever we eat, so the food that we eat, it affects the way that our mood changes, or
Yes.
what we feel, or how we even perform on the field?
Yeah. So I'll give you a very simple example. Have you had a halad doodh in life?
Yes.
Yeah. What is it? What does it have?
So turmeric and milk.
Turmeric and milk, a little bit of sugar, maybe. Yeah. A little ginger, whatever.
True.
Yeah. How does it make you feel after drinking that?
Very calm.
Right.
Essentially, and kind of
soothing.
Very soothing.
Right. Now the trick here is that turmeric has something called as curcumin. The constituent is curcumin. Curcumin is a known anxiolytic, which is an anti-anxiety component.
Okay.
Right? So turmeric is a natural God-given anti-anxiety.
Wow. Okay.
All right. So when you can't sit and eat a bowl full of turmeric.
Correct.
Right. So that's why you put it in milk.
Right.
And you drink that. That helps to reduce your anxiety levels at night.
Okay.
It facilitates reduction of cortisol secretion.
Okay.
So naturally leading to reduction in stress levels.
Wow. Okay.
So now if you're playing a sport, let's say like chess or like billiards, snookers. These are the games where you need to have control on your nerves.
Right.
Is when you include such meals in your food.
Oh, that is very interesting. So, even spicy food, that also kind of...
Yes. So, if you are playing something like rugby or football, where there is a lot of aggression required, but controlled aggression required, then we do recommend eating red meats, a little spicy food.
Okay.
Not one night before the game, because one night before the game is like a strict regime, because you don't want an upset stomach and all of that also. But overall, your diet can have this intonation, which facilitates aggression.
Correct.
which does not make you a calm and quiet person on field.
Correct.
But at the same time, nerves need to be in check, so it cannot be aggression out of proportion.
Okay.
Right. So it is a nuanced balance that you have to achieve, but it is very, very hackable with food. So what you put inside your body is what is going to be
How you mentally also
Yes.
perform on the field.
What affects the mind affects the body, and what affects the body affects the mind.
So a lot of athletes, or generally people who are very healthy, they are advised to have a lot of protein in their meals or in their diets, and protein is something which takes time for it to digest and all of that bit of it. So how does having a lot of protein, interestingly, so that's why I'm asking you this question, is because there's a friend of mine, she has her son who is into taekwondo, and at 7, so her son's coach kind of told them, every day they need to have one banana and one egg. And she's like, will he be able to digest that egg every single day? Because normal Indian diets don't really have a lot of protein, or so how does protein impact the way that people arrive, but mentally?
Okay, I'm going to answer this in some multiple facets.
Okay.
Number one, if you are a person who's physically active, you said the person's age is 7.
Yeah.
Right? 7 is growth spurt age.
Correct.
हाँ,
Correct.
तो एक क्या 10 अंडे भी खा लेगा तो
Fine.
digest हो जाएंगे.
Wow,
Not
nice.
a problem.
Okay.
Alright, it's like your body is expanding at this point. The more fuel you put in, the more the engine's gonna rev.
Fantastic.
Right?
Great.
So one egg should
Be
not
fine.
even count
Okay.
for a
Okay.
kid of 7 years old.
Okay.
Alright, so that's one. Second thing, what you again, I'm again going to iterate the same thing. What you are going to eat needs to be measured, needs to be monitored, for one reason, that you need to be sure that the goal that I'm trying to reach, I am in alignment to that.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So I don't want a 7-year-old who is explosively aggressive.
Correct. Correct.
Right?
Right.
So just because I want to pump protein, I'm not giving him or her food that makes them aggressive unnecessarily.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Third aspect, Indian food is not naturally protein lacking.
Okay.
Okay? It's just the kind of food we've gotten used to having that is more carb loaded. Like simpler meals that we have
Correct.
are carbolicious.
Nice. Yeah. True.
Alright? It's very easy to have a veg protein diet.
Wow.
as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
Alright? And it's just what you are trying to achieve
Right.
that's going to make all the difference.
Correct. Correct.
Alright? There are so many people, there are so many martial artists who are vegetarians, which is
Yeah.
absolutely fine.
Fine.
Right? It's just a choice-based assessment.
True.
And what changes is, if you're having vegetarian food, how much do you need to eat? Versus if you're having non-vegetarian food, how much do you need to eat?
Correct. Okay.
Right? So one banana and one egg for a 7-year-old, I would
Absolutely
say,
fine.
is the bare minimum.
Okay. Okay.
Bare
Oh,
minimum.
very interesting.
A non-taekwondo playing 7-year-old should also have this.
Oh, okay. Nice. Interesting.
All right.
And this actually is very interesting. So you spoke earlier about, how the athlete can really succeed when there is an entire team working together.
Yeah.
So like the nutritionist shouldn't just work with the strength and conditioning coach. They also need to work with the psychologist, because whatever food that they are, recommending also impacts the way that, people think or behave, or all of that bit of it. Oh, that is very interesting. So okay, Aditi, so we have spoken so far about parents or parenting in sports, but there's something very interesting that you do where you use therapy, where you use sports as a form of therapy. So where does that apply?
So it applies majorly, like a major chunk of it works for children with developmental issues.
Okay.
So children with autism, children with ADHD, children with ADD, even dyslexics.
Okay.
So you try to put them in some kind of a sport
Okay.
where this nervous energy that is building around them can be channelized.
Okay.
In general, it is very, very important, very, very essential for every child to be involved in some sort of a sport in their developing age.
Okay.
Because not just does it give you the physical growth spurts
Right.
properly,
Right.
it also helps you to develop that mindset.
True. Absolutely.
It helps you to take losses. It helps you, or it teaches you to take losses. It teaches you to be a part of something bigger than yourself.
Correct.
Right? I'm like, with the kind of nuclear setups that we have now, children are the center of the family.
Correct.
But a child who plays some kind of a sport knows that the team matters more than me. My performance matters more than me, etc. So they learn to be a part of something bigger.
Right.
They learn how to deal with losses, deal with setbacks, deal with appreciation and applause as well.
Wow. Yeah. True.
Right?
Correct.
So not just negativity, but they also learn how to stand in front of people and say, yes, I achieved something.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it, and you should be proud of it as well.
Yeah.
So this mindset can be developed absolutely wonderfully through sport. When we use sports as a measure for treatment, it is from this aspect of, let's say if somebody is an ADHD kid, so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder is what we call it, where there is a lot of this burst of energy.
Correct.
That these children have, where they are they are not able to channelize it to something productive, right? They might be hyper focused on something very
Small.
minuscule,
Yeah.
and then suddenly change their focus to something completely different. So sports is one thing where there are so many things happening at the same time that hyperactive energy kind of finds its source.
Right.
Right. And then there are children who deal with a lot of this violent anger outburst,
Right.
etc. I actually happened to hear Sunil Chhetri say this in one of his recent interviews, that if it wasn't for sports, or if it wasn't for football in his life, he would be a useless thing for society, because he would just be a nuisance.
Oh.
Right?
Oh,
so
interesting. Yeah.
Dealing with violent anger outbursts and all of this is also something that we then recommend
Correct.
that the children should
Focus on.
focus on sports.
So, interestingly, one statement that my mother or my family used to make is what I'm remembering right now. So, I started skating when I was 5 years old. And every time, we start that story, my mom is like, you were very hyperactive. That was probably the only way that I could get you to focus on one thing. So, that is interesting. And I think sports also gives a certain level of structure in your life. So, even if you compete or you win or you don't win, there is a certain kind of discipline that sports also, did in my life. And that's probably my very first example of, the kind of discipline or structure which I was comfortable with, because it didn't feel like it was, somebody forcing me to do it. It just...
It helps
felt
you
very
to
natural.
develop the you gotta do what you gotta do attitude.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have to wake up early in the morning, you have to wake up early in the
Correct.
morning. If you have to eat so and so amount of food, you have to eat so and so
Correct.
amount of food. If you have to spend so many hours on the field practicing, if your coach has said so many rounds of the ground,
Yeah. So
you
many
do it.
rounds. Yeah.
So be it.
Correct.
So this naturally goes into, or this knowledge naturally percolates into other aspects of the life.
Yeah.
Where if they're, let's say, trying to build a business tomorrow,
Correct.
then they will not crib about why am I supposed to do so many things.
Yeah.
You got to do, you got it.
Yeah, that is very true. And I think you just enjoy the whole entire process. Like,
Yes.
it's such a very positive spin to this entire thing because of sports. You just enjoy doing all of this, so it doesn't feel like it's a compulsion. So very interesting. You have also mentioned, Aditi, that sports is something that can help people who have undergone trauma.
Right.
So how does that happen?
Undergone trauma in terms of being a player themselves. That is also something that we've worked with, where somebody has been into competitive sports.
Okay.
So I used to work with one such individual who was a tennis player.
Okay.
And then, I mean, like, she was a professional pro level tennis player. And then she got married, she had her kid, and then, like, kind of life happened,
Right. True.
kind of a thing, where she was still like playing, but then she stopped actively pursuing it
As competitively.
as competitively as she used to.
Right.
Then she became a mother, and then of course a lot of other things that were going on in her life. One fine day she realized that she stopped playing altogether.
Okay.
Right. So that is when she started going into a negative spiral of what am I doing with my life, kind of thing. So she was working as well, something. So at that point is when she came to me, where we actually sat down and tried to find the reason for her to stop playing.
Okay. Okay.
Now, many a times people stop playing a certain sport either because of some injury,
Right.
either because of some event that happened that led to that injury, accidents, etc. All of these things. A lot of people stop playing because of the financial commitments as well.
Yeah.
Because
Couldn't afford. Yeah.
it is an expensive lifestyle being
Correct.
an athlete. So then, I mean, right from having the highest quality of nutritious food to having access to the best kind of team,
Correct.
is all a money game.
Correct.
So
True,
then
true.
a lot of people kind of stop because of that as well. So we tried to figure out what was her reason, and we just realized there was no apparent reason for it. It was just inertia.
Okay.
Okay, now this is more important than my game. Now this is more important.
Priorities changed.
Priorities keep changing. So then she wanted to get back to it,
Right.
but then she was kind of scared, kind of apprehensive that, what if I don't perform as well as I used to? And then people will, misjudge and
Yeah.
say, you've lost your flair, whatever.
Yeah.
So that is where we
Oh.
actually worked with her, where that there was no real trauma, as we call it.
Yeah.
Like, there was no accident, there was no setback, there was nothing. There was just inertia that was stopping her. So
That is
we're
where you
fortunate
helped her.
enough to just give her a push.
Nudge. Yeah.
That's
And
it.
she was fine. That is fantastic. So now, Aditi, if there is anyone in India who wants to pursue sports psychology as a career, so what is the kind of future, or what would you suggest are the steps that they should take to potentially consider becoming a sports psychologist?
Okay. First of all, in order to be a sports psychologist, you have to be a psychologist.
Right.
All
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So let's start from there, maybe.
Okay.
Is where you get your bachelor's, your master's in psychology, because only then do you get the licensures to practice.
Okay.
Right? So, bachelor's in psychology, master's in, clinical, whatever, counseling psychology, all of that can be done. You also can pursue a master's in sports psychology if you're that interested. My major suggestion always to all younger people who are trying to become psychologists is learn from experience.
Right.
Do as many internships as possible. Work with a lot of people in different fields. Even if you think that, so I have a colleague who completed her psychology bachelor's with me, who herself is she's a Malkham player,
Okay.
who did psychology and then specialized in sports psychology because she herself is a
Sports person.
person. So that is one way to go about it. But if you are not from a sports background, such as myself, I'm not a sports person, but I still work with a lot of sports people now. That is because of the kind of experience that I've gained over these many years. So learn out of experience, do a lot of internships, gain a lot of insights by actually being on the field, and then you can choose the best way forward for yourself.
Oh, that is very interesting. So now, Aditi, we will come to segment 2 of our podcast.
Okay.
So this is a rapid fire. Okay. So I will ask you a couple of questions. I love that. I'll ask you a couple of questions, and you have to answer it as quickly as you can.
Right.
Okay. So the first question is, what is the youngest age at which an athlete can come for sports psychology?
When they're in their mother's womb.
What? Okay, this needs a longer answer. Can you explain?
All right. So Abhimanyu,
Right?
we all know
Yeah.
Abhimanyu's story. He learned strategizing when he was inside his mother's womb, right? So that is when you start developing a brain.
Right.
Is when your mother's thoughts, your mother's ideas, your mother's insights have the biggest impact on you. The
Right.
environment that you're in has the biggest impact on you, in general, in life. And when you're inside your mother's womb, your mother is your environment, right? So if you are so hell-bent on having an athlete as a kid, then you need to be in that mindset first.
Wow. Interesting.
That is the answer for that.
Correct.
Which should also answer the question ki there is no age limit
Correct.
for asking help.
Correct.
If you need help when you're 1 year old, you need it. If you need help when you're 95 years old, you need help. Help has to be asked for, and it can be made available.
Fantastic. This is superb. Yeah. So my next question is, can group therapy help for team sports?
Yes, group therapy can help for team sports because it can, as I said, it can give you that place where you can actually sit and discuss things with each other as well, or you can sit and discuss things with a
Psychologist,
coordinator,
right.
with a psychologist, so that you are able to resolve if there are any issues. You can resolve those issues without any arguments, right? Somebody is there to kind of
Calm
tone it
you
down,
down.
calm
Correct,
it down,
correct,
whatever.
correct.
And it also can work as a very good repertoire building
Correct.
exercise.
Correct.
So usually when we talk about group sessions, it is usually visualized as people sitting in a circle with one person sitting at the center, and then you say something, you say something. That's not how usually group sessions will work. That is one way of how group sessions work.
Okay.
Group sessions also work in a way where there are some activities assigned, where you do them together. There are some insights that are shared, then you share your opinions on that, etc. So there are multiple ways in which a group session can actually bring the
Entire team together.
ecosystem
And I think what also happens is, because of the name of therapy, it automatically becomes a non-judgmental space.
Yeah.
So it's not about, kind of complaining, but it's just about bringing up issues which are probably hampering performance.
So it is essentially meant to be a place where you can be yourself as candidly as possible. There are a lot of times when people refrain from openly expressing in a group session as well, because they are scared of being judged by their team members.
Right.
Not just the psychologist, but by the team members. So then there are other activities, there are other exercises that are done which brings the team together in a positive way.
Oh, very interesting. Okay, so my next question is, can coaches also benefit from mental conditioning?
You cannot condition your athlete if you are in the wrong mindset. So, yeah.
That is, correct, absolutely. And my final question for this segment is, do people have to have been in sports themselves if they want to become a sports psychologist?
Short answer, no. Little long answer, it can help.
Okay.
If you yourself are a sports person, it can help you to understand your clients much better, maybe. But it's not a requirement, it's not a prerequisite. As I said, I am not into any kind of a competitive sport, and yet I am able to work with all of them, primarily because my training is not to understand sports. My training is to understand humans.
Correct. Oh, nice.
Right. So it's not a prerequisite, or it's not an absolute requirement.
Correct.
If you are, then of course it is. It's an added benefit, but it's nothing. It's not going to ease your way through
Into it.
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you so much for that. So, Aditi, we have one very interesting game for you.
Okay.
Okay, there is this company called Voxbox. What they have created is like these deck of cards for founders and business owners.
Okay.
Okay. So, it's all about finding the voice inside the box. So, normally people say, you know, that think outside the box,
Right.
but their tagline is think inside the box.
Okay. Fine.
So, I would love for you to pick a card.
Okay.
Okay, and answer the question that's there on the card.
Okay.
Okay, you can read it out.
Who are your very first employees? Okay. I have been very fortunate to have a wonderful team since the very beginning of my organization. Some of them joined in on day one
Wow.
of when we started. But then, of course, you know how employments work. Somebody changes, somebody goes ahead, some does something. There was this one person who joined in during COVID, who was, I think, one of my very first intern I hired for content creation. So she used to make Instagram posts and all of that.
Right.
Was a psychology student herself.
Right.
She just used to do Instagram posts and that, the other kind of things. And then eventually, as work, she used to see what kind of work is going on. She used to take up that ownership by herself, ask me for more work. I'm very happy that my company is 6 years old. She's been in it for 5
Wow.
now.
Nice.
It's Moksha Shah.
Okay.
She's my senior facilitator.
Wonderful.
She has her own team now in the organization.
Fantastic.
And yeah, we've stuck together with each other for so long.
Superb, yeah. Fantastic. Now coming to our third and final segment, Aditi.
Okay.
So this is a segment that we call as Community Asks. So the entire Kritva community that we are building, so digital as well as, you know, on ground, we ask them questions that they could potentially have for our guests, and we have a few questions, you know, from that. So I would like to ask you those. So the first question is, how can I stop overthinking before a big match?
A simple way to stop overthinking is to break your chain of thoughts. If you realize that you are overthinking, because we all realize that we are, you know, going into a spiral, do something about it. Like if you're sitting in a chair, just stand up. If you're in a room, change the room.
Right.
If you're doing some activity, change your activity. Essentially, break your pattern so that it breaks your chain of thought as well. That is the first primary thing to do. But if it is something that happens to you often, then there are some underlying issues that maybe you need to resolve first. So that should be yours.
Needs to happen. Okay, wonderful. The second question is, how do I build confidence again after a series of bad performances?
This is a place that most make or breaks happen in sports, where a series of failures starts to define you as a failure. But then if you want to still pursue through, if you want to still overcome that, then for that it is essential that you go back to what made you like this thing first in the first place, right? So if you are failing at something that you love, doing, essentially, then that means that either you've lost your love for it, or there are some external factors that are hampering your love relationship.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, interesting.
So most of the times it is the latter than the former. So then understanding those obstacles, working on those obstacles can help you to overcome that block,
come back.
performance block,
Correct.
as you call it.
Correct. Oh, nice. Interesting. Okay. So this is a question that says, I am healed physically, but mentally I am still afraid to play at 100%. So what can I do?
You cannot play at your 100% ever. Shouldn't even expect that.
Okay.
All right. Now this is something that comes out of a lot of research, which is emotional burnout, essentially, where you love doing something, you are absolutely invested in it, but it it consumes you in such a way that you don't keep any margin of error for yourself,
Right.
or you don't keep any scope of keeping yourself away from the actual activity. So whenever people say this, that I want to be at my 100% and I want to do my 110% and all of that, that is actually counterproductive.
Okay. Okay.
So it is important to understand that you need to keep a little margin for yourself, maybe like an 80-90% of a margin, where you perform to your 80% the most.
Correct.
And then you still have a little margin left for yourself, where you can still go back, do some other things, where you can replenish your resources, basically.
Oh, that is interesting. So you need to perform your best, and on some days that best can be 90%, some days it's just 60% also. So showing up is, I think, what
Most
is
of it.
most important. So without trying to kind of push yourself to be 100%, accepting you for what you are today.
So your 100% today can just be 30% maybe.
I love that. I love that. So that can be a subjective 100%, but you need to give your 100% for the day. Oh, that is very interesting. How can our team improve trust and communication?
Improving trust and communication is something that happens over time.
Okay.
It's not a quick fix, all right? Because in a team, usually, people keep coming, people keep going.
Yeah.
It's always a mixture of
and
newer
overlaps.
and old, or overlaps. So what needs to stay constant is the culture of the team.
Right.
And for that, it takes time.
Okay.
To build that level of trust, to build that level of communication amongst each other.
Okay.
That is something that a therapist can facilitate for you, kickstarting that process.
Right.
But it is something that will eventually require time to happen. Like if there are, let's say, 2 new players in the team, they will go through that curvature of building trust and gaining trust.
Correct.
That cannot be fast tracked.
Right, correct. And would the team also need to have a dedicated person? So, as a psychologist, you can help set that, culture or set that process. But would the team also need to have a dedicated person who makes sure that that gets implemented? Or how does that work? Or can the team manager or, have...
So again, as I said previously as well, this is a whole team's effort.
Right.
Like, and when I'm saying team, I am considering the psychologists, the coaches, the staff, everybody as a part of the team.
Yeah.
I'm not just talking about the playing athletes. Just them. Because people can, like the playing people might have very good camaraderie amongst themselves, but not have a very amicable relationship with, let's say, the paramedics.
Correct.
It will still affect. Some or the other will still affect.
Correct.
So the whole team, the whole ecosystem needs to be aligned. Right?
Interesting. Fantastic. So the next question that I have is, how can I balance sports with studies and other responsibilities?
very common question for
Yeah.
sports parents कि
Yeah.
पढ़ना भी तो है.
हाँ.
Okay, there are two ways to go about this. First of all, divide your days. Like if it's a child that you're thinking of, then divide their days where on Mondays you expect them to study, on Thursdays you expect them to play. So on Thursdays don't ask them homework हुआ क्या, and on Mondays don't ask them कि training हुआ क्या. Something
Got
like
it.
that. Kind of categorize it. And then the second thing is that if you're that serious about your sport, then there are institutes, colleges, schools that propagate that.
Correct.
Right? So there are colleges that focus or give you admission only if you're a
Sports
performing
person.
athlete.
Oh, nice.
There are, just like there are colleges, like my college is a research college.
Right.
So they will not give you admission looking at your sports
Got it.
profile. They will look at your research publications. But then there are other colleges that focus on giving admissions to sports people, because then they give you the infrastructure for it as well.
Correct.
Right, so they have the gyms, the swimming pools, the
Correct.
grounds and all of that. They can provide you with that. So then they would
help
want
you.
only
Those
serious
kind.
sports people to be a part.
Correct. So interestingly, so what either the parent or the child would need is, the first step is clarity.
Yeah.
What is it that they want to focus on? So they could be playing sports just for the fitness part of it, and then the academics becomes important.
Yes.
But if they want to pursue as performing athletes, like you mentioned, then it's okay if your academics are not that great, or then you identify spaces where you can build.
If you want to be an Olympic player,
Yeah.
you probably shouldn't aim to be a theoretical physicist at Caltech.
Correct.
Right.
Everybody can't be everything, essentially.
Everybody can't be everything.
Oh,
You
that is
can
nice.
be, of course.
Yeah.
There is no stopping you from
True.
it. But then
They don't need to be.
You
So
don't
that is-
have to divide your resources so thin.
Correct.
As simple as that.
Oh, interesting. So this is an interesting question. Can sleep really help me be mentally stronger for sports?
Yes.
Okay, how?
Do you put your phone on charging?
Yes. That is how
Do
you
you
do it
use
for
your
yourself,
phone
yeah.
when you are charging it?
No.
So if you want good energy levels, if you want your mind to be sharp, sleep is non-negotiable. So there was a study a few years back that happened. I'm forgetting the year that the study was done in. So what they essentially did was, they kept a person, a college student, they kept him awake for 7 days straight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
He was not let to sleep at all.
Okay.
So the first day went fine. The second day, his cognitive abilities started to get affected.
Right.
By the third and fourth day, he was not even able to remember his own name.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Because his brain was in so much overdrive.
Huh.
What typically happens when you sleep is that whatever experiences you had throughout your day, whatever knowledge you got throughout the day, whatever new memories were formed,
created, huh?
all of this gets transferred to your memory when you sleep. So basically, the time for which you sleep is when your brain is the most active.
Okay.
Contrary to what we think, that there is no activity or reduced activity, your brain is actually more active doing filing work.
Okay. Interesting.
Okay.
Huh?
So I learned something new today, goes in the new things department. I revised something or I relearned something, goes in the revision department. So filing work happens when you sleep.
Interesting.
So if you don't give your body that downtime for transferring all the information, for processing everything that you learned throughout the day, there can be things that you weren't able to perform in the day, but then you sleep on it, you solve that puzzle in your mind,
Actually.
and then you are able to do it in the morning.
Wow. That is
Yeah,
fantastic.
that happens with
Yeah.
most people.
Okay.
And you're like, "Arey, kal tak nahi ho raha tha,
Aaj ho gaya." Oh.
That's because your brain sat and solved that puzzle when you were sleeping.
Oh, very interesting.
Right?
And so my last question from the community is, when is it that an athlete should work with a psychologist versus with their own coach?
Okay. Ideally, the psychologist and the coach need to first work together
Okay.
before any of it. But since we don't live in
Ideal
euphoric,
situations,
we
yeah.
don't have those. So a psychologist is, as I said, needs to be approached when it is a more productive approach than curative
Correct.
approach. So if you are going to a psychologist when it is some issue that has happened, yes, they will be able to help you best. But the most optimum use of a psychologist is going to be when you don't need them, is when they can have the most difference for you,
Yeah.
can make the most difference for you, can have the most impact on your life.
Okay.
Where you might just, they might just help you to tweak a couple of things and then you can be on your own. So best time to go to a psychologist is when you think you need to go to a psychologist.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah.
So thank you so very much, Aditi. That is all the questions that I have for you today.
Superb.
Thank you so much for joining us today and adding so much value.
Thank you.
I am sure our viewers are going to have a lot of fun watching all this entire episode.
Thank you so much for having me. It was super lovely to be talking to you.
Thank you. So Aditi has answered a lot of interesting questions today. But if you still have some more questions, then make sure that you put those questions in the comments below. And what I would also like for you to do, anything that Aditi has shared today, if you found that very interesting, share that with somebody that you know and let her know what you liked best about whatever stories that she told today. Thank you so much for watching our episode.